Okay, well, hi everybody. Okay, no camera. Here we are. Okay, so I think everybody can see me. Thank you for joining our live broadcast today. Today's Q&A is a follow-up to our video that we had concerning the preparation, how to prepare for coming to work over here in Quebec once you've received your CSQ. Let me quickly introduce myself. So I'm David Habak. I run Abacus Human Resources over here in Montreal. We're an IT recruitment firm, and one of our specialties is international talent. So we're constantly looking for the best and brightest who are on their way to coming to Quebec. And we help you properly prepare so that you can have a great career continuity, so you can continue working in your field at the highest level possible, as quickly as possible once you arrive over here in Quebec. So the goal of today's Q&A was a follow-up of our previous video regarding preparation. And the reason that we did this video is that generally we've seen candidates do recurring mistakes. And that is, well, oftentimes, for example, they're going to learn French to get their CSQ interview. And once they've gotten their CSQ, well, by the time they went their CSQ, they stop practicing French, they stop learning French, and they leave it at that. And by the time they get the permanent residency, they get to Quebec, and all of a sudden they lost their French. And that's a big shame. So what happens then is that they have to start and relearn it. And they take the time, they go to francisation, they go to all these courses to learn French once again. And the next thing you know, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months have passed. And that's where a danger happens, because the whole point of preparing before you arrive is to limit the amount of time that you're not working once you've arrived here. With every month that passes, it gets harder and harder to get a job at your level. And this is why we always encourage doing the maximum of preparation before you arrive, so that you can work as quickly as possible once you arrive over here. And so the point of today's Q&A, of course, is to answer any specific questions. Now, unfortunately, most of the questions that we've received in advance were immigration related. They were asking which technologies are hot, which level of communication should I have. These were all great questions, but these are topics that are covered in other videos. We've had a video that covers, what are the hot technologies over here in Montreal and in Quebec. What are the technologies that are up and coming? What's in demand over here? And this has all been covered already. And same thing about the language. So we're going to send you, whoever's attended, we're going to send you links to those videos so that you can see them. And they also had their own Q&A, so you can have all of that information. But today's focus is really to be on preparation. What must we do to prepare? What's important to prepare? And so on. So as I said, unfortunately, we haven't had really many questions that were relevant to today's topic, unfortunately. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get the ball rolling by, recapping a few of the important points. And we're going to spend most of this time today answering your live questions. So on my end, the most important, the most common mistakes that I see, or that we see over here in our organization, is generally people will wait till they get here to improve their English or French language. That's a big mistake, because communication is just as important as your technical knowledge. Again, these are all covered in other videos. And so it's really important for you to, we're not here to tell you how you should learn it. I mean, there are many resources. Of course, one of the points that we get is people tell us, well, it's tough for me to practice. I have nowhere to practice, and I understand that. But there are resources out there. I know there are a lot of online webcam courses. There are private teachers. It depends on one's budget. Some things are more expensive than others, but realize that this is an investment that you're making. Investing in your language, whether it's English or French, is an investment in yourself. And it's an investment in, the life that you're going to make once you've come here. You made the decision to come here to Quebec, and the language is really the best investment you can make, whether it's English or French or both. Once you get here, if you don't properly speak the language, or if you don't properly speak the language or probably don't understand the language, then you're going to go a lot of time before getting the right job, and that's going to be very costly. So that's a good investment to make. Okay, if you're connected, by the way, because we're having people connect slowly but surely, you can start asking questions already. We're going to be, as I said, we're going to be spending today's session to basically answer live questions, because as I said, most of the questions that we received were not really relevant to the topic. So we're going to spend most of the time asking live questions. If you have questions, now's the time, go ahead and ask them and we're going to answer them. But while I wait for those questions to come in, I'm going to continue covering what I believe is the most important. So we covered language preparation, extremely important. By the time you get here, you should be able to properly communicate. The next thing, it's one of the most simple ones, but I get surprised all the time. It's your CV. Find a proper CV model and just build your CV according to that standard. We have a great model that works really well in the free guide that we make available on our website, www.abacustalent.com. If you go and find we have a guide for basically all preparation that could help you on all aspects. And we also have a CV template in there. I encourage you to go take a look and use that template to read your CV. The CV is basically your business card. And if you don't have a proper CV, recruiters, hiring managers won't look at you in the proper light, and they may very well undervalue you or misunderstand your profile altogether. So you could have done all the best preparation. You could study your language, have the best technical knowledge in the world. If it's not well communicated within your CV, you're not going to get a chance to prove that. So language, CV. Next thing, technologically. Montreal is a place that keeps really up to date with the trends. Although you can have many jobs that have older technologies, it happens, it still eventually catches up. And so if you're able to keep up technologically within your level, your domain of expertise, then you're really going to have a great advantage when you get here. For example, if you're a front-end developer working with JavaScript, great. If you know Angular really well, you're going to have a great advantage when you get here. So finding out what the trends are within your level of expertise and finding a way to get really good at that, whether that means changing your job or working on a project or something that's going to make you acquire those skills to be at the top level of what you're doing, well, that's another great thing. So language, CV, technology, those are the three main areas. If you have any questions, now's the time to ask. So I'm going to wait. Let's see. So questions are coming in. Hi, how about LinkedIn? Great question. LinkedIn is actually great resource. I'd say it's the number one. So sorry, the question was how important is LinkedIn? How about LinkedIn? LinkedIn is very important. Recruiters over here use it as their primary tool to find candidates for companies. Companies use it as their primary tool to find their candidates. Now you have to make sure that your LinkedIn profile, I mean, it sounds obvious, but you never know. It has to be in either English or French. Generally, LinkedIn is in English. Even if you're talking about being in Quebec, again, unless you're going to Quebec City where everything is in French, your LinkedIn must be in French. When you're talking about Montreal, for some reason, LinkedIn tends to be in English, no matter the person's profile. So generally look at making an English LinkedIn page if you come to Montreal, French if you're going to Quebec City. And it's extremely important. Get connections and get your connections. And when you actually arrive to Canada, make sure to change your location to Montreal. A little tip I can give you is, if you've received your permanent residency and you're, let's say, about a month away from arriving, change your location to Montreal, see what happens. Some people will track that and they're actually going to be interested in contacting you. So for those of you who have your CSQ, who have received your permanent residency and would like to increase your odds of getting a job before you arrive, that's a little tip I give you. About a month or 2 months before you're about to arrive, change your location to Montreal and you're going to get some interest if you have the right profile and if your profile is well built. Again, make sure to build your LinkedIn profile correctly. We have actually a guide that we can send you to build a LinkedIn profile. So whoever is on this call today, we can make it available by email. I'm taking a note to remember to send it to you. Okay, next question. So the information that I'm giving is applicable to CSQ holders or just permanent residency holders. I'm not sure. This is from Mariana. Maybe you can tell us which information you're talking about. Are we talking about the CV and all of that? If you're talking about all the information we've shared regarding communication, CV, and technology, yes, definitely for when you have your CSQ. The reason it's important for you to get started as soon as possible, even if you haven't received your permanent residency, is because sometimes if you're looking to update a technology, that's not something you do overnight. If you're looking to improve your language, that's not something you do overnight. And if you wait to get your permanent residency to start doing those things, well, then you may go a longer time into your arrival before getting a job. And then, as we said, the longer you go without getting a job, the harder it becomes for you to get a job in your field at a really high level. So my advice for you is everything that I'm giving you as advice is do it as soon as possible. Don't wait. If you haven't received your CSQ, you may or may not get it. So it's up to you to decide whether you want to take that chance of putting in that effort. But once you have your CSQ, your permanent residency is almost a certainty unless you've done a crime or don't pass the medical exams. And so them's the right time to really start putting all these wheels in motion. Okay. Next question. So somebody asked on project management perspective, what are the top skills being asked? I'm assuming that's to know what to brush up on. It's a very tough question because essentially project management skills, we're looking excellent communication. So if you have trouble with communication, you won't be able to work as a project manager. I'm not going to get too deep into this subject because everything that covers communication we've covered in our previous videos, so you can just take a look at those, and we've had a specific conversation regarding project managers, so I invite you to look at our previous videos regarding communication. But we're looking at communication as being a top skill for project management. You want to have at least 4 to 5 years experience. That's important as well, a minimum of 4 to 5 years experience. And of course, if when you're presenting your experience as a project manager, you have to be able to communicate how many people you've managed, how big were your teams, how important were your projects, so how many people were on those projects, how long did they last, what was the budget for those projects, did you manage those budgets, did you manage the people directly? So understanding the complexity of what you do, that's all very important. So I'm not sure that answers the question on skills. It's a tough question to ask, but essentially the more complex the projects you've done and you have great communication, the more important it is. If you have certain certifications like ETL, PMP, that's great as well. Next question. So what about Stack Overflow, GitHub, and so on? Good question. Do you want to be active on Stack Overflow, GitHub? I'd say that there are certain companies here that do take a look at Stack Overflow and GitHub, but I'd say it's not the majority. I do think it's taking more and more place, though. I think if you asked that question probably a year ago, I would have said, yeah, not so much. It's taking a little bit more place now. And probably in the years to come, it's going to take even more place. But I'd say the market here is still maturing and catching up to these types of sites. I think they're great. But what you have to realize is that right now the structure of most companies over here is they have recruiters do the recruitment. They don't have programmers do the recruitment. They don't have IT people doing the recruitment. And so for a programmer to go on Stack Overflow and look through code doesn't do anything for them. That's slowly changing though. So I would say for now, it's better to focus on LinkedIn as a public sharing space, but not to ignore Stack Overflow or GitHub. Okay, next question. What is the best way to develop a network of contacts before arriving to Quebec? Good question. Well, finding people to begin with, find people who are here already that you know, that maybe, you know, you're on these online networks, online forums, online blogs. Find people who are there and connect with them on LinkedIn. Again, the best way to develop a network of contacts is to build those contacts on LinkedIn. So find the people that you know over here and connect with them. You know, many people, they'll go on LinkedIn and they're going to connect with, let's say, recruiters and these types of people and just ask them to connect together. That's a practice that I would say is so-so, because if your profile is from, you know, overseas, we'll call it, is from an international profile, you're not here yet and you're connecting with the recruiters, sometimes they get confused as to why you're connecting with them. They say, oh, well, this person has probably, is looking for a working visa, and that's a whole other game. So if you're going to connect with recruiters to build your network, that's fine, but make sure in your message you don't keep the standard LinkedIn, hi, I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn. Make sure to just give a little blurb, a little sentence, a little paragraph, as much or as little as you need to let the recruiter know your situation and why you want to get in contact with them. Okay? I hope that clarifies that question. So question 6. So we have a project on project management, the top skills. I think I just answered that, unless that's the same question being asked again. Yeah, that's the same question twice. So I answered the question about project management, but there's a follow-up to it. Okay, certifications. Yeah, so certifications for project management, in case I wasn't clear earlier, the major ones are generally PMP and ITIL, okay? Especially PMP. I think that's the one that's the most interesting for project management. But again, Agile, yes, sorry, great point. Thank you, Eduardo. Agile, Scrum certification, all those are really important. Not really important, but really appreciated as well. That being said, the most important aspect for your project management will be being able to properly communicate the complexity of the projects you've worked on. Somebody who has a little bit of experience with like very simple projects, but has the PMP certification, ITIL, Agile, everything, but just has a little bit of experience with complex projects and knows mostly simple projects, won't be as attractive to a potential employer as somebody who's worked on complex projects. So my advice to you is, if you're going to take all this, if you haven't worked on complex projects and you want to take a lot of time to invest into something, easier said than done. Of course, it's all great theoretically, but theoretically, it would be better for you to go and find a job that gives you access to really complex projects than it would be to go get those certifications. Now, if you already have that complex job experience, then yeah, it would be great to go get the certifications. If you don't have the chance to go get the complex job experience, then get the certifications as well. But I would say the priority is to get really hands-on experience in a complex environment. Next question. So does having a CSQ, already living and working in Montreal, but not a permanent residency, put the candidate at a disadvantage against PR holders in terms of available job offers? I'm not sure how to answer that question, because if you only have a CSQ and not a PR and you're working in Montreal, I'm not sure how you're working. I'll assume that you have a closed work permit. I don't know. But if you have a CSQ, not a PR, I'm not sure how you're working. Maybe I would need clarification on that. But the point is, the employers want whoever's the most qualified, and then they'll want whoever's the most readily available. If they have to choose someone who's amazingly qualified but only available in 4 months, or someone who's, you know, well qualified, who's available in 2 weeks, they're going to go for the 2 weeks. So it's about being available. That's the priority. So yes, if you're not readily available, even if you're more qualified than the next individual who is readily available, you will be put at a disadvantage. Next question. I hope I'm helping with these answers. Sometimes, there's so much to answer and you try to get as much as possible in there, but not be confusing in the answer. So if you feel that there needs to be more to build on, please don't hesitate to ask. Okay, I'm really just reading another question. It's pretty long. Okay, so somebody's asking about, their question is saying they're a technologist in Brazil, something between a technician and a back, and they're saying should they improve their studies in Brazil or Canada before arriving here? This brings us back to the initial point, which is a back is always more appreciated than a technician degree, so it's up to you to decide. Whether your back is in Brazil or Canada, the times have changed. Where we are today, companies recognize more and more the international back. So if your back is a back, then back being bachelor's degree, excuse the shortening of it, then yeah, back will always be more appreciated than a technician degree. That being said, what's always going to be most appreciated is experience. So if you have a back but very simple experience, again, it's not going to be as attractive as having a technician degree. This is for most cases, but of course, it's a generalization that doesn't always apply. Okay, so that's a little parenthèse. But yeah, you're always better off getting good, complex experience if you're choosing between investing your time than just going for the diploma. But if you have no choice to get that experience, then yeah, go get the back. So yeah, that's my answer for that. Somebody asked if it's better to omit certain information from the CV because they're scared of looking overqualified for a position. That's tough to answer. I guess my question would be, why are you applying for positions that you're underqualified for? My answer is, if you're qualified for a position, then you should apply for the positions for which you're qualified. If you have proper communication, good technological know-how, and good experience, then there's no reason for you to go for positions for which you're underqualified. That's, I guess, how I would answer that question. Okay. Somebody's asking me. Okay. Okay, so somebody's asking if there are more opportunities to work as an infrastructure specialist, Microsoft or VMware specialist. Tough question. I would say you have possibilities in both. Whether you have possibilities in both. Say which one would be more is tough. It depends, I guess, of which time of the year you would ask me that question, but you're pretty much, you would have opportunities in both, so you're fine. I'm going to jump back to an earlier question about the person who said, would you be disadvantaged if you worked here with a CSQ versus somebody who has a permanent residency? Well, in this case, the person just clarified that they have their work permit. So there's a program here that if you have your CSQ, and that you're on a closed work permit, then an employer in 2 days a new employer can get a new work permit. That's a special program, but not many employers know about it. So I would say that you would still be at a disadvantage, but if you're able to properly communicate the situation to the employers, then there is going to be more openness. But again, employers don't know much in general about all these different immigration routes and rules, and they sometimes get scared of it. So I think no matter what, you're always going to be at a slight disadvantage. But what you can do to make that disadvantage as small as possible is make sure that you communicate these programs to the employers, educate them, help them help you. So yeah, that's my answer on that. Someone asked if it's a prerequisite to have a PMP to do project management. No, it's a prerequisite to have good communication and experience. Someone's asking me what are the most, when it comes to networks, what are the most required certifications? Again, certifications are very rarely required over here. What's required is really great experience. And if you have a back, you're in an even better situation, but experience and communication are the two most important. And when I talk about experience, I mean, of course, years of experience, type of experience, and the resulting complex knowledge that you got from that experience. So those are the most important. That's what's required. Certifications are fantastic assets, better assets in some fields than they would be in other fields. So I got the question, what's more important, a CCNA, CCNP, COVID for networking? Well, obviously, the higher you go in the certification and the deeper you go, the more it's going to be appreciated. So the CCNA is entry level, great. But if you can go to the next steps within those certifications, then it gets more and more recognized. But again, certifications are a great asset, but not a requirement. Generally, of course. Everything I'm saying is generally. Please don't take my words as the set in stone rule. Some employers will have requirements that aren't part of the general rule, and it's always going to be this way. I'm just talking in terms of the general tendencies within the market. Okay. Somebody asked a question about Canadian experience. What if I'm properly qualified for a job, but I don't have any Canadian experience? Okay. The Canadian experience question is the one that always hurts me the most, because I wonder what's Canadian experience. You know, like when someone says we're looking for Canadian experience, what does that even mean? Abacus, essentially what we do as Abacus is that we help professionals, international professionals, get a great job for which they're qualified as soon as possible after they've arrived to Quebec. And we do this often, we do it all the time. Many of our professionals get team lead jobs, senior jobs, and so on and so forth. I'm not trying to build dreams, I'm talking facts. And these are people who don't have Canadian experience. So you wonder, well, how come they're being successful? So again, I'm gonna go on a topic that I keep rehashing, but maybe I'll put you in context. It's all about perception of risk. When somebody's hiring somebody, there's always this perception of risk, you know, like forget about somebody. Let's talk about someone who has Canadian experience and a company who's hiring that person. No matter how much they've interviewed them, how much they've tested them, they're never sure about what they're getting. Are they gonna, is that person gonna fit well within the team? You know, they did well on technical tests, but are they gonna adapt well to our environment and do well in our environment? And there's always certain uncertainty that comes with hiring somebody, no matter where they're from. So when you're hiring someone who comes from another country, well, you've just increased that whole perception of risk. I don't know this person's diploma. I don't know the company they've worked in. I don't know, you know, their standards for technology. I don't know. And so that perception of risk gets bigger. So it's your job to lower that perception of risk. And how do you do that? Well, that starts, of course, with your CV. And we're going to have an upcoming video and Q&A on the CV, which is a very important topic, where you can show within the CV, where you can lower that perception of risk. We're going to go into that topic much more in depth, but so I invite you to follow us at that time, because that's a subject that can take a lot of time. But you work on the CV, you make sure that you have really strong technical skills with at least, let's say, 3, 4, 5 years experience, etc. And then you have all the tools you need to begin lowering that perception of risk and getting a job in your field, just as a local person would. So yeah, Canadian experience is not, if you're not getting a job, it's for something else, and it doesn't have to do with Canadian experience. Either you don't have the proper skills that are looked for in the market, either you don't have the proper communication, either you don't have the proper attitude, or you haven't been able to properly communicate those skills through your CV or other. But generally, if you're having a trouble finding a job here, it's in IT, we're not talking about other fields. In IT, it's not because of Canadian experience, lack of Canadian experience. Okay, I'm looking at the next question. So someone again asked the question, someone's doing QA and testing and they have some certifications and a deck, but not a back. Is that a problem? Again, experience is the most important aspect. A back is a really great asset. A back will help you probably get a better salary. A back will probably, give you a little advantage. But if you have really great experience in QA and testing and development, and you're really strong at it, really strong, not just thinking you're strong, but really are strong, then yeah, there's great possibilities for you. Experience will always be the trump card. Experience and skill and ability. Skill ability combined with experience will always be the #1 requirement. Okay, well, that's all the questions I have for now. I'll wait a few more seconds to see if anybody else has any questions. Again, for those who are just joining us, I invite you to ask some questions because it's a Q&A and that's how we're doing it. If you want to have a recap, you can watch this video, but of course, to understand the spirit of what we're discussing, I invite you to go see the video that we've prepared already that's available for you on YouTube regarding the topic of preparing before your CSQ. But I guess I'm just going to reiterate, once you've had your CSQ, then that's the time that you want to start preparing your arrival to Quebec. Many of the preparation steps can take time and you don't want to do them when you're here. The whole point is to be ready once you've arrived and not arrive and say, oh man, I should probably learn this technology. Oh man, I should probably improve my language. Oh man, I'm probably going to go to school over here, because that's not the time to do it. You have your CSQ and you have the luxury of having a long time. Obviously, well, it's not fun to have that long time before your permanent residency comes in, but at the same time, it's a luxury that you have that you should take as an important time to bring the improvements that you need to bring so you're ready once you arrive here. Again, if you go many months without working here, a year without working here, it'll become exponentially more difficult for you to get a proper job at the proper level in your field. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for joining us. I invite you, of course, to join our Facebook. Like us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+. And in the meantime, just letting you know that upcoming videos will have to do with the interview, how to do your CV, what to expect from the interview, and many, many more. Again, if you have any suggestions or would like any sort of video created on a certain topic, please write to us. And if we get the same questions over and over, then we'll create a video of advice specifically for that. Check the DCAS Abacus video on Mandy's channel. That we have them once a month on Sundays, and we'll take it from there. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.